Hi, Nesh Nikolic here, and today we're going to be looking at mindfulness. And I've got a very special guest today who's been very polite to come along and share with us their experience about mindfulness and the other practices that they do. And I'd like to welcome Dr. Lisa Ciechomski. She's a psychologist and has been since 2001. She specializes in mindfulness and stress management in particular, and has been teaching mindfulness-based stress reduction for 8 years now, so very experienced in her work there. Lisa has been involved in teaching mindfulness at Monash University, the Methodist Ladies College in Melbourne, and also to psychologists through the APS, the Australian Psychological Society. Lisa also practices really regular yoga and also spent many years refining her practice. So she does mindfulness and yoga and is about to now return to the Rockland Yoga Ashram for some further work and also as a resident teacher. So welcome, Lisa.
Hi, Nesh. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Maybe it would be nice to start with just finding out a little bit about what is mindfulness for our listeners and our viewers. If you might be able to give us a bit of I suppose, an explanation from your mindfulness space and the teachings that you've done, and maybe even some of that mindfulness-based stress reduction work that you've done.
Well, mindfulness is both a concept and a practice, and I like to think of it as a way of being, about paying attention to our moment-to-moment experience with curiosity, openness, like a child discovering something for the first time. It's a mental discipline, and it does require a certain amount of self-discipline, and it's about tuning into our experience rather than tuning out. So the aim is to observe our experience without judging it, or if we are judging it, we aim to watch the judging. And in this regard, we need to cultivate an attitude of kindness towards ourselves and a degree of acceptance, and that takes time. As a practice, it's a universal, natural human capacity. It's something we can all practice. And it can make life richer, and we can start to loosen old habits and become less reactive.
Fantastic, fantastic. You mentioned that there's a sense of curiosity there. Can you say a little bit about that curiosity? It's almost like there's inquiring and exploring and observing and looking. Can you say a little bit about the curiosity?
Sure. I think an important aspect is our intention to, we often, would like things to be different to how they are, but by just being a bit curious about our experience and sitting with whatever arises and not trying to push it away or suppress it, just being open-minded really, and that curiosity, that takes a while to cultivate too, because our habits are so deeply ingrained. Some people say, well, I don't think I can practice meditation. I don't think it's for me. And often that's because what might have happened is they've sat perhaps just for a few minutes and they don't really like what they're experiencing. It may not be pleasant, may not be relaxing, and they just have a sense that they can't do it. And that's one of our habits too coming through, perhaps one of our stories, this is I can't do it, or I'm not good enough, or gee, that person over there looks really relaxed, but that's not me. I'm sitting here and I've got the busiest mind. And that's another myth that can come through too, that meditation is about being able to clear our mind, when in fact it's purely coming back to being curious and watching, learning to cultivate that witness ability.
Yeah, lovely.
And that takes time, and we need to have no expectations, and that's very hard, especially for psychologists. We're often quite driven in our work. We like to see results, and that whole idea of having no expectations is really challenging at times.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's what I understood is it's that capacity to observe and to notice with curiosity rather than getting caught up in expectations or a framework of how I should be practicing, but rather being in the present moment, openly.
That's right. And I should say meditation is a great way to learn to cultivate mindfulness, but it's not the only way. We can practice in so many small ways just throughout the day.
Hmm.
Perhaps from the moment we wake up, we could imagine if we did this every day, just took 3 conscious breaths
Mm.
and felt the breath entering and leaving the nostrils, rather than thinking, oh my God, I've got so much to do today, and rather than planning the day, which is all happening in our mind. We may not have even got out of bed yet, but we're racing ahead thinking, oh, I have to get to that meeting on time, or I'm wondering how it's going to go with that client because it didn't go so well last time. And so it can be as simple as coming to our breath, just taking a
Mm.
couple of conscious breaths. And we could do this several times throughout the day, perhaps before we get in the car or catch a train, or, well, even if you're on the train, that's a good place to practice too. There's lots of opportunities, even in everyday life, how we open and close doors,
Mm.
and how we make that morning tea or coffee. Can we savor that tea or coffee and enjoy it using all our senses?
Mm.
So
So mindfulness doesn't need to be just a sitting meditation practice. It can be expanded further into our daily activities, the having a presence of mind. It's almost like dropping anchor and just pausing for a moment and being conscious of what's happening in the here and now, even just closing a door in a particular way, being gentle with that, or how we make a cup of tea, observing how we stir the sugar through, or maybe the aromas that are coming through, being present. Is that kind of capturing it now a bit?
absolutely, absolutely, yeah, yeah. There's a lovely Buddhist monk from France called Thich Nhat Hanh, and he's written several books about mindfulness. And he says this about teeth brushing: brush your teeth in such a way that joy and freedom are possible. Don't be carried away by concerns of what you'll do afterwards. I'm standing here, I have teeth to brush. My practice is to be alive, to be free to enjoy toothbrushing.
Isn't that
It's lovely.
isn't that beautiful? Isn't that beautiful? Being able to celebrate the brushing of your teeth.
Yeah, I mean, I know for myself, I'm often in such a hurry. It's like, oh, and then if you're having a busy day, you get in the car and you're not even sure if you did brush your teeth.
You're usually brushing and thinking what's the day ahead got, or what's tomorrow got before we're going to bed. So it's trying to stop. Can you tell us a
Yeah.
little bit, Lisa, about your journey to mindfulness? How did you get into practicing mindfulness and yoga and having that in your life?
Well, sure. I spent 10 years practicing probably the opposite. I was quite a stressed uni student, and I got to the end of a PhD and had very mixed feelings. It was well, as many people know, it's such a full-on experience. And then when it's over, there can be a sense of, well, what next? So I ended up not long after I finished my PhD, or towards the end of it, I was working at Monash University in general practice, and I met mindfulness expert Dr. Craig Hassett, who has been a pioneer in this area.
Mm,
The first year and the third year medical students now do mindfulness as part of a health enhancement program,
fantastic.
and it's a wonderful program. And around that time, I went on a 5-day health practitioner retreat at the Ian Gawler Foundation out at the Yarra Valley. And so we practiced meditation every day. And I was on a vegan diet for 5 days. That was new.
Oh my goodness.
And it was wonderful. So I was with these wonderful teachers like Craig and Ian Gawler. And I think during that 5 days, I got a taste of something different, what it was
Mm,
like to feel calm and still but at the same time having thoughts going through my mind, but perhaps a taste of being able to just watch them. Same with feelings, knowing that there was some anxiety there, particularly a little bit of social anxiety, because I was with my peers and I was still a fairly new psychologist. But I guess it sparked a curiosity about the nature of our internal world and the nature of impermanence, that thoughts come and go, feelings come and go, and purely by taking time to observe and learn these wonderful ancient practices, things change. Our experience is changing all the time. We may sit for a meditation of just 10 minutes, and in that 10 minutes, we can experience so many sensations and different thoughts. So not long after that retreat, I headed back to the Rockland Yoga Ashram, and in 2008 I started the 2-year diploma of Satchitananda Yoga Studies to become a yoga teacher. Because I kind of knew soon after that retreat, I just had this desire to be able to pass on these teachings to other people and help people manage their stress, particularly.
There's quite a transformation for you in terms of having that experience of those number of days where you're doing that practice and being able to, I suppose, observe the mind, observe thoughts coming in and going without holding on to them. Very similar to the acceptance and commitment therapy work of diffusion, being able to observe that, and there was a sense of calm for you. What else has mindfulness brought to you? How else has it helped you in your life?
Well, I think I perhaps maybe don't get quite as stressed as I used to. Perhaps I can recognise the signs of when I'm starting to get stressed or doing too much. For example, if I'm studying for a while and my body's getting uncomfortable or achy, I might decide, well, what really needs my attention right now? Maybe I need to go for a walk, come back to the study. Of course, I recommend that to students quite a lot, regular study breaks.
Absolutely.
I don't. I try and catch myself out if I'm trying to multitask. You know, often we try and, you know, we might be cooking dinner, we might be on the computer, and doing something else. I try and come back to just working out what really needs my attention right now. Yeah, and I think I'm perhaps a little kinder to myself, and I'm aware of, you know, when I'm being, you know, judgmental towards myself, and I can witness that a little more.
Yes, yes.
It's a work in progress, small steps, but uh, yeah, sometimes other people point out the changes too, which is lovely. Sometimes we forget we've made these changes. I had a client say to me recently, I feel quite calm when I'm around you. And I thought, this was a client with anxiety and a history of depression. I thought, well, that's great, and I thanked her, but I said, look, you know, this is like probably 20 years of work sitting in front of you. This is not something that happened overnight. I've been practicing for a while. My grandmother took me to yoga when I was 19, which was a wonderful experience, to be with this group of women all in their 60s and 70s. And perhaps she planted the very first seed of something, knowing there was something else. Yeah, I just said to my client, you know, this is not beyond you. You're perfectly capable of developing some calm and becoming mindful as well.
Yeah.
And
How do you bring mindfulness into your clinical work, and how do you support your clients with understanding mindfulness and maybe beginning those first small steps to be able to feel and appreciate some of the benefits that mindfulness can bring that it has for you, providing that to them?
Sure. Well, I think with people who are highly anxious, short practices are definitely important in the beginning. because even people sitting and closing their eyes, they can be bombarded by thoughts and their feelings can be quite overwhelming. So small steps. I'm quite a fan of Russ Harris's work, dropping the anchor, just getting people to feel their feet on the floor, feel their body. Very small steps in terms of just noticing how the body feels and using the breath. I'd use the breath a lot. So just feeling the sensation of the breath at the nostrils without trying to change it in any way. And I think analogies are very helpful if you move on to getting people to watch their thoughts, using analogies such as thoughts being like clouds across the sky. Sometimes there's lots of thoughts, sometimes there's a storm, sometimes there's spaces between our thoughts and a bit of that clear blue sky. And occasionally, after some practice, we may see more of the blue sky, our awareness without any thoughts coming in. And that can be quite an unusual experience for people too, to know that you can close your eyes and potentially have no thoughts. That experience can be quite different, and so it's very much, I think it's important if you're teaching your clients meditation to then have some discussion about how that experience was for them afterwards. And building up from small practices of, say, just 2 minutes a day to 5 minutes, then 10, and then potentially, recommending a group program. There's a great benefit in practicing mindfulness in a group, because with people coming together, often they just realise the commonality. We all, can experience a certain degree of anxiety. People with depression or chronic illness, and they realise they're not alone in those feelings. That's a common experience. I'm halfway through a mindfulness program at the moment. It's an 8-week program through Open Ground, and this is a group that runs around Australia, and it's based on the traditional mindfulness-based stress reduction program by Jon Kabat-Zinn and colleagues from the States. And it's a wonderful program. I'm in a group of about 20 people, and just to observe and watch people learn more about their experience each week and grow. And we do a lot of practice in the group, and we're given CDs to support our practice at home. And it's a great program. So I'll give you the website. That's one I'd recommend.
Fantastic. I might ask a little bit later in a moment where people can find out more, and maybe you can give us some details there.
Sure.
I know that you're looking to very shortly head off to do some more work at the Ashram again, and also being a resident teacher, and obviously your own practice. Can you tell us a little bit about what that's going to look like, and maybe some of the aspects that you will be working on while you're over there?
Sure. Well, I've changed to registration as a non-practicing psychologist. I'll be taking time out from counselling work, and I'm returning to the Rockland Yoga Ashram, which is the Satchinanda Yoga tradition. It's a beautiful centre in the middle of the forest near Daylesford, Victoria. And we have a few centres in Australia. We're very lucky. We have Mangrove Mountain in New South Wales, and also Anahutt, which is on top of a mountain in the South Island of New Zealand.
Gorgeous.
And these centres have been running for some time. Mangrove has actually been running for 40 years now. And in an ashram, you enter a routine of simplicity and regularity. You're quite well occupied, and every hour of the day is an opportunity to practice mindfulness and bring your attention to the present moment. It can be challenging at times. The alarm goes off at 5:30 and there's yoga at 6. And in the ashram, I have to share a room with other people. Sometimes they snore. There's lots of little challenges, but I actually really enjoy the routine. There's a practice we do called Mona, where we practice silence from after dinner until after breakfast the next day. This gives us time to practice mindful eating, for one thing, just enjoy our food, and an opportunity to observe the mind, reflect on the day, and so some of the things I might be doing in the ashram are cooking for people and also managing a group of people. Sometimes there are people coming in for up to a week. We have a program called Living Consciously. So we can all there may be 4 of us in the kitchen, all cooking, chopping vegetables, and they may be trying to get to know each other and, how are you? How long are you here for? What do you do? And so if I'm in charge of the meal, I might put them all on silence and say, let's just practice mindful cooking because it helps my concentration. And, then we might be cooking for 50 or so people. So, and there's other activities. There's gardening and work on the grounds. And as a yoga teacher, I have the opportunity to meet people coming in on different types of retreats. We get a lot of people coming from the city, wanting some time out from busy careers. Sometimes people have an illness or going through major life transition. And so I might get to do things like lead people on a silent, mindful walking activity through the forest, give a talk on mindfulness, that type of thing. But
it's really exciting to listen to that type of approach of mindfulness, where there's that formal mindfulness where you might be sitting and doing some meditative type work and observing the mind and diffusing and noticing and being quite curious about the mind and gentle. Then there's also that mindfulness practice that happens in the process where you're being present in what you're doing rather than multitasking and doing 5 or 6 things at once. You just focus your attention gently on one at a time and give that space your energy and your thought, your consideration, and doing it in that very conscious way. And then there's also that almost like a grounding experience where we just stop for a moment and appreciate the here and now. We check in and get connected with that here and now. So mindfulness is like for everyone. It's not just a formal practice that occurs in a particular scenario like in an ashram, but everyone can go out and use this irrespective of what level they're at.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. You don't need to come to an ashram to practice mindfulness. In fact, one of the aims really is to perhaps visit places like this for a few days or a week, have some time away from your phone, the computer,
Yes.
and practice, learn some new skills, develop some new habits, and then take that back to your community, back to your work, and implement it in everyday life. That's the overall aim. And yeah, it's wonderful to see people taking time out from their busy life, coming in, and I get a lot of joy out of helping other people. And there's a lot of research coming out now on kindness and doing things for others and the connection with life satisfaction. Yeah.
And I can see how you've connected those two things with mindfulness and stress reduction, in that the practice of mindfulness cultivates stress reduction, where rather than having 10 or 15 or 20 things in our mind about what we need to do for the rest of the day, we hold, in this present moment, one thing, and we do it well, and we connect with it, and we embrace that moment, and then we move on to the next thing, and we can still get all of those things done. And I'm sure the ashram can also be a very busy place. However, we do it with a presence of mind and capture that space without having all the stress that comes with being overwhelmed with all the thoughts and kind of getting taken away or hooked up or entangled in all the thoughts, just stopping, pausing, and connecting here and now.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it's if you are someone who tends to do a lot of things and be very busy, I think with a regular mindfulness practice, you just become aware perhaps a bit sooner of when you're trying to do too much. And we know that if we continue to maintain a lot of stress and we're not activating that parasympathetic nervous system, it's really not good for our bodies on all levels, on our nervous system, our digestive system.
Yes.
It really is important that we find our own way of managing stress, whether that's sitting, doing meditation, or going for a run, having an activity that brings us, that we can focus on, perhaps that brings us a lot of pleasure. I think that's the key. Yeah, it's broader than perhaps just that too. It's about lifestyle, doing all the things that we tell our clients all the time, eating well, getting enough sleep, exercising, and having a technique for managing stress, connection, being connected to others. We know that there's a lot of research on that now, in terms of maintaining good mental health. So
Absolutely.
it's I think it's all of those things, and it does require some discipline and a little motivation. But once we get that going, we're in a good routine, and it just helps us to manage life. Jon Kabat-Zinn has a wonderful quote, which is, "We can't stop the waves, but we can learn to surf." And I think that's what my yoga and meditation practice has really done for me. The difficulties come along in life, that's part of life, but perhaps there's some equanimity developing in terms of being able to manage those ups and downs and not be so affected, and be able to pick yourself up and keep going, and knowing that those difficult times, it won't stay that way, that things are constantly changing all the time.
That's that impermanence that you've spoken about before, where our experiences will come and go, thoughts will arise and they will pass, and sensations will come and go, and there'll be busy periods and less busy periods, and so these things come and pass, and rather than going out and struggling with those times, being able to I suppose hold them in a way so that they pass. It's learning to surf those waves rather than battling against them.
Absolutely, yeah, and being realistic in our expectations, and particularly if you do take up meditation, to know that when you first start practicing, that judging mind does come through for many people quite strongly, and because it's a form of exposure, you're exposing yourself to yourself, to all those habits that may have developed through years of conditioning, just over time. So it's important to find a teacher who has a regular practice, who has been through all of that, and someone who's authentic and honest and warm-hearted. It can be helpful to sit with different teachers and to just try to notice when you are judging your practice, and try to have no expectations. Sometimes, we sit for meditation and we might have this lovely experience. We feel calm. Our mind sort of slows down a little. And then the next time we sit for meditation, the mind is just racing all over the place. And even experienced meditators will say that still happens to them sometimes. And the aim is to just watch it all, And I like, some of the simple practices where the aim is to just come back to the breath, notice the breath, because that has a wonderful way of taking you, perhaps taking your attention away from the thoughts or the difficult sensations, and creating that space. And then as people move on and become more practiced in meditation, there are meditations where you focus on noticing difficult sensations and sitting with them, allowing them to be there, describing them. So noticing how they feel, where they are in the body, whether it's heavy sensation or light, or is it moving in the body, bringing back that curiosity to that sensation and creating the space. Can you allow it to be there, because it's already there. We might as well allow it to be there. What is happening is there already, and just knowing that's going to pass. And in my work with the medical students, we work through these 8 mindfulness tasks that Dr. Craig Hassett has developed, and they're lifelong tasks, really. They're tasks like acceptance and letting go or letting be, listening. Are we listening to our internal dialogue, or can we listen to the birds around us if we go for a walk? Self-discipline is there. And he uses wonderful examples in his books. We might be at a party and we have a piece of cake and it was delicious. Can we exercise some self-discipline and not have that next piece and another piece and that effect on us? And then his final, the 8th task, is expanding self-interest and can we do things, something for other people, whether it's volunteer work or just in little ways, spending time with family.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm really excited. I want to know, where can we find out more? Where can we find out more about mindfulness? Where can we find out more about meditation practice? Where can we find out more about yourself? Point us in the right direction. Where can we go from here?
Well, there's some wonderful mindfulness teachers, wonderful yoga teachers that I know of in Australia. So and there's some great books as well. There's great meditation apps now. Smiling Mind is a wonderful website. There's programs for young people and adults. I'd recommend all books by Dr. Craig Hassett and Jon Kabat-Zinn. And there's many programs throughout the year at the Ashram. For example, actually Dr. Hassett is coming to the Ashram in May to run a weekend on mindfulness. So perhaps if I give you a list of some of my favourite books and some websites, and people are welcome to contact me for some more information as well.
Fantastic. Where can people contact you? What's the website, and how can they make contact with you?
My website is relaxwithyoga.com.au, and they can email me through the contact page.
Fantastic.
And I'd be happy to get back to them. It may take me a few days to get back to people. In Ashram, we don't have our phones on. In fact, last time I checked, the phone only works in the car park. So, but I'll definitely get back to you eventually.
Fantastic, fantastic. Can I say thank you very much, Lisa, for coming and sharing your expertise and knowledge, and giving us a really nice insight in how mindfulness can be used not only with our clients but for ourselves, and particularly those different aspects of mindfulness, whether it be grounding or whether it be some formal work or some informal in the process type mindfulness. And I'm sure that we'll definitely have a lot of people contacting you. We'll just all have to be quite mindful that it might take a few days and sit with that and use some experiential acceptance during that time while we wait for you to get back to us. So, thanks.
My pleasure, Nesh.
Thanks, Lisa, and all the best at the ashram as well. Look forward to chatting soon again.
Lovely. I look forward to that too. Thank you, and all the best with your practice.
Cheers. Thanks, Lisa. Bye.